is what we call UBE. I'm still trying to remember what that stood for. Universal Boulevard Expansion, I believe, back in the day. But at one time it housed our Walking Dead year-round attraction. And when that attraction ended its run, we started using it for Horror Nights. Um, and this year it'll be the location for Fallout. So we're backstage. I'm going to take you guys around to the main entrance. And it's also very lovely air conditioning. So
Oh, interesting. So this is your view. This,
yeah, so where you are right now, this would have been like the interior of the hospital.
ah,
Yeah, so like the dead inside doors would have been around the corner.
right.
So
Different entrance for the first time, I think, right?
a little bit different. Yeah, we tweaked it a bit. Because now we use this venue for Fan Fest. This is where Star Trek was.
Yeah.
For Fan Fest. So
Did that delay you guys at all as far as writing that down? And
in terms of our order of when we build things, yeah. So like Dungeons and Dragons and Paramount's Star Trek were the last two things to become available to us because they had to get struck and all of that. So we started those two last. Yeah. So Fallout. Let's do a radical shift from where we just were in terms of Terrifier, because this is an entirely different, aspect of the genre of horror, which we actually, when we're curating the slate, this is kind of the way we think now. Back in the day, when I was first starting out with this in 2006, it was like Freddy, Jason, Leatherface. It was very our vision of Horror Nights was really specific. It was like slashers, and that was it. But horror as a genre continues to evolve, as it has always done since the silent movie era. And particularly today, I think we're in a period where it's very expansive. And I think that's the rise of streaming and there's just so much content, so many different places. And we, keep our eyes open for opportunities in that world. We've been getting into gaming the last couple of years, kind of in a big way with The Last of Us. And now here with Fallout. And also you could say Five Nights at Freddy's, although both Five Nights at Freddy's, which is based on the movie, and Fallout is based on the series. But of course, that series was incredibly faithful to the video game. So when we were looking at Fallout and going through the series, it was almost overwhelming because there was just so many places and so much opportunity and so many things you could do. But when you're designing a haunted house, you have to kind of pick the things that you're going to bring to life, and then what is the journey, what are we doing from a narrative standpoint. And where we kind of settled out is that we are more or less following Lucy's journey on the show. So we're going to start in the vaults just like she did. We're going to start with the wedding, the arranged wedding that goes horribly wrong when the raiders break in. We're going to follow in her footsteps as she leaves the vault and goes out into the wasteland. We're going to meet the same person she met, the ghoul. And then we're going to try to focus on the Super Duper Mart as kind of our finale. So that's kind of the big building blocks of how we approach this. The biggest challenge was going to be right out of the gate was, okay, we got to bring the vaults to life. And that is no easy task from a scenic standpoint. So probably just take you in and show you where we are. In this case, it was complete control of audio and lighting, being that it's more or less what we did with the venue after Walking Dead is we basically made it a black box, like a theatrical black box. So it took many years. We didn't start off this way. It took until I think last year where we had totally gutted all the permanent walls that were inside that attraction. And we always had this, theatrical grid up here that we could use for both audio and lighting. So that was a huge benefit. But it took us, the first houses we built in here, we built them around where the walls were. Now it's a blank slate. Now we can do whatever we want here. The scene we're going to be in is going to be Lucy's wedding day. So the only things left to do in here is props and dressing. Particularly, what's not in the scene are all the dead vaulters that should be flying in next day or so. So what we want to communicate to the guests when you come in is something has gone terribly wrong. You're going to hear Some Enchanted Evening, just like in the series, playing by the Castells. But the sirens are going off. There's a bunch of dead vaulters scattered all over the ground. There, over that doorway will be the just married decorations for Lucy's apartment. And she comes out. She's already been stabbed by Monty. She's in that wedding dress and is bleeding, but she has a broken shard of glass that she used to carve up Monty's face. So she comes out from that door. Monty comes out from the opposite door. You, the guests, are trapped in between the two of them as if they're trying to get at each other. And that's the first kind of sign you get, besides all the dead bodies, that something has gone wrong in this idyllic vault. So you guys familiar with like the world of Fallout?
Yep.
Okay. It's really complicated, but I'll give you my quick version of it. It's basically like Cold War America in the 1950s, but then that history branches off into an alternate reality that is totally the world of Fallout, and it's retro futuristic, meaning that a lot of the things you see in the world of Fallout are very retro 1950s type design. They didn't, like, computers wasn't something that, like, our world after the 50s, we all went with the information age and computers, and they did not. So computers aren't a huge deal in the world of Fallout, but they've advanced other technologies far more than we have. There's a war that took place between China and the United States that ended in nuclear Armageddon. So companies built these vaults. And really, it's the haves and the have-nots. If you had enough money and you could afford to buy an apartment in these vaults, then you could survive the nuclear apocalypse. If you didn't, you were stuck on the surface and took your chances. So it's hundreds of years since all of this has taken place. And these people have been living down here in this society, and they're really kind of naive to what's going on the surface. The people on the surface change because of radiation, and they become what's called ghouls. They're not zombies, but some of the features that you associate with zombies, like missing a nose and the skin's all, affected by the radiation. And unless they take this specific drug, they go feral, and then they are just completely wild. The main kind of antagonist in the series is called the Ghoul, and he was a former Western television and movie star in the 50s, but he got caught out in the surface when the nuclear bomb started dropping, and he's essentially a bounty hunter. So they kidnap Lucy's father in the first episode. Lucy goes in search of her father. The Ghoul, she ends up with the Ghoul who has his own agenda, and all these storylines are going to intersect. But it's a very, it's a whole bunch of different video games that built this mythology. But for us, we're in a vault. It's supposed to be a happy day where somebody's getting married, but in fact, it's turned into a massacre. The next thing you see as you come here is one of the raiders, who are the people. They break into the vault disguised as if they're from a neighbor vault. But once the murders start happening, they kind of strip down so that you see that they're not really vaulters. One of them has a guy by the throat. He slashes his throat right in front of you. He gets sprayed with blood. We're in Vault 33 right now, and we're going to transition to Vault 32, which meant we had to build a vault door. That is a lot of CNC cutting. I think it's something like 20-something layers of it. Excuse me real quick. But this is like a super iconic element in the world of Fallout, so we wanted to have a moment where you got to see a big, giant open vault door. So we've come through Vault 33. We're going to go into Vault 32. What's not in here right now is all the set dressing. So we just wrapped Scenic, and there's going to be hanging bodies. You're going to see all these dead vaulters from Vault 32, but they're not freshly killed. They're all badly desecrated. It's as if whatever happened here happened a long time ago, and it's part of the mystery of Fallout. Like, well, what happened to these people? How did they die? But you're going to have to swim your way through the hanging bodies, and you're going to run into Lucy's little brother, with his flashlight, because he comes in here looking to see if he can figure out what the mystery is. And then once we go through this stretch, we're going to go out into the wasteland. So we'll meet up there. Cool. Added the next layer, and now there's more layers to come. This set has been evolving slowly because it's so big and there's so many different aspects to it. Anyway, there's a moment in the show where Lucy walks through the vault door, she steps out, and now she's in the wasteland. That's where we are now. So we're doing that with a huge cyclorama, big, huge dimensional set pieces, printed floor graphic, and then the final layer is actually sand and dirt, and that gets piled up in the corners, and then all of the bodies that have been, completely obliterated by the nuclear bombs. As you're coming in here, you're hearing Geiger counter clicks to tell you it's highly radioactive, but you're also hearing weird sounds coming from that window. It's a ghoul that is in the process of going feral. He's trying desperately to hang on to his humanity. In that window, you see rad roaches. So everything, all the animals and insects have also been altered by radiation. So roaches are now these things called rad roaches, and they're like this big. So there's dimensional ones on the house, but there's also on video. We got all the 3D models from the production, so we were able to animate roaches scurrying in that window. You get attacked by a scavenger, who's one of the people of the Wasteland who are out here just trying to eke out an existence. And he drives you into the house, and as you're going into the house, the feral ghoul attacks you through the window. And then there's a double scare once you pass through what will be occurred right here, which is sitting there. It hasn't been put up yet. And then we're going to jump to the ghoul's graveyard, which is where he first was brought back to life in the series. So that's through here. Watch out for the big lift. We're finishing up all the overhead branches.
Gotta have this. ET, please.
I don't even know if we had one of those trees left. We did in the beginning.
Just believe what we like to believe.
But I know we built that tree for Quiet Place last year because we built trees specifically to hide speakers in them. So now we're starting to use them. And this is the ghoul's grave. There's a scene where these guys resurrect the ghoul. It gets confusing because there's ghouls, which are all the people in the wasteland that are turning into these creatures. But there's the ghoul, who's the former television actor. So he makes his first appearance here through this coffin. And then we go into the... So we'll do no pictures in this scene because they are assembling right now a T-60.
No pictures.
No pictures in this next scene, please. Looks like they've been busy.
Oh, so there are robots in this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, power on them. So they're in the middle of... So Maximus, who is a guy who's squired to a knight named Titus, which is this guy. They're standing off to the side. Behind you is a massive cave. And under that black bag is what's called the Yao Gai bear. It's a big, huge radiated bear. And this thing is massive. When we were sculpting it, just the clay alone weighed 500 pounds. It's one of the biggest creatures we've ever built for Horror Nights, one of them. So you hear the bear inside the cave. Titus is an animatronic. That's what they're building right now. And he says, go inside that cave and see if the target's in there. And the Maximus, who doesn't have any armor or anything, is like, my lord, I don't have armor. And then all of a sudden the bear attacks, which is a big, huge puppeted effect. And then Maximus tries to shoot it. And we're kind of in the middle of all of that action. So they're still finishing all this up. And then we go to the Super Duper Mart. So the finale of this house is going to take place at the Super Duper Mart. This is where the ghoul takes Lucy and basically sells her for parts because what this place does is it harvests organs and sells human organs and traffics in that, and also other nefarious things like the drugs the ghoul needs to keep from going feral. So he's come here to get a supply of those drugs. On the little talk box, you're hearing the voice of Snip Snip, who is the robot that runs this facility, and welcoming you inside. The ghoul is going to be the live performer in the scene. He comes out with his sawed off, fires off a round, and tells you to try your luck inside. And then we're going to take you into the Super Duper Mart. So in this big, huge window is a rear projection where you see Snip Snip. at first Lucy thinks he's like the nicest guy in the world, this robot, and then he realizes that he's just, he just wants to cut her open and take her internal organs so he can sell them. So it's a big video of shadow video of Snip Snip with his big saw blade going. Lucy comes out of that door with a pair of defibrillator paddles and tries to shock you with them, and then realizes that you're not the threat and feels bad about it. So Lucy's like the nicest person, but over the course of this experience of going through the wasteland, she gets hardened.
You get an okie dokie in?
I think she said she has a line on her exit. It's like, gosh, like she totally in character of Lucy. Like she comes out just ready to get you, and then she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and then sneaks back out. And then once you get into here, it's all about the ghouls from this point. Mm-hmm. So they're gonna have props and dressing of all the body parts and ghouls and whatnot. There are ghouls inside the refrigerators that are coming out for you. There's ghouls around the corner coming out for you. But Martha, who's that kind of sad, pathetic character in this scene in the series where she hasn't turned yet, and she's really trying to hang on to her humanity. So she's just standing here going, "My name is Martha, my name is Martha," but then she turns and attacks you as well. So it's just a gauntlet of ghouls all the way through the section. And this would be the finale scene, but there's, it's Horror Nights, so there's an extra go through the curtain, and there's one more ghoul waiting for you, and then we're going to do a little tease for season 2 of Fallout before you exit. So I guess this is as cool and as air conditioned as possible. So if you guys have any questions, I can answer them here.
Might it be a Vegas tease?
What's that?
Might it be a Vegas tease for season 2?
Oh yes, yeah, New Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. There'll be a big billboard for New Las Vegas, and
Nice.
get a little taste of a little audio of the Death Claw, etc.
This feels so permanent compared to some of the houses.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any thought to having one house kind of in this spot in particular, like remaining year round? Like
No, it looks like that, but it's all temporary.
incredible.
Yeah, it's all temporary. It's all just built like you built sets for a movie, and then designed to be ripped down as soon as we close. There's things in here that aren't in the other house, like true drop ceilings and things of that nature. But that's really because that's what the show requires. Like you can see on the sets, you'll see all these pictures, and this is all stuff that came from my creative treatment to my team. I go through thousands of pictures and try to find like the key ones so that so they can sit, because they're going to be setting that scene up over here. So they're like printing out pictures from my treatment so that they know there's another good example. It's like, okay, all right, there's a jack-o'-lantern plastic, they're just trying to hit every detail that's in the show. And Squirrel and his little buddy are going to be dead in the corner. But yeah, it feels like it's permanent, but it's not. It's actually all designed for temporary. Yeah.
As you mentioned at the top, it's like this is such a unique world, Fallout,
Yeah.
and just visually, was that just exciting for you guys? Because you've done a lot of houses, but like this one is just a very different flavor.
Yeah, I think particularly with brands that originated with video games, there's just a different design aesthetic that comes along with those worlds. And that's the challenge, is trying to recreate it. So, we're lucky, again, we're in Hollywood. So all of the people my art director would have assigned to do all the drawings for this, those are all film and television people. They've been working for us for a couple of decades, but their main gig is working on movies. So one day they're working on you can't say the specific movie this guy's working on, but he's working on a big, huge film franchise.
Sure.
And then they freelance for us for Horror Nights, and then they go back to the world of movies and television. And that's so we can get this level of scenic and set decor and whatnot.
Can you talk a little bit about just kind of the overall vision of Horror Nights and how it's decided where certain houses are placed?
Yeah, in terms of placing houses, there's kind of a couple of different things that go into it. Say Five Nights at Freddy. We just knew right away that had to be soundstage 15. It has a lot to do with the height of the walls. When you go into Freddy Fazbear's and you see that facade, you're going to go, damn, that's the movie, because it pretty much is. It's the scale of it is insane. So that was really important. Here we wanted for Fallout, we wanted a similar theatrical environment, but you're also trying to take the main marketing properties and make sure that they're spread out. So you wouldn't want to go, oh, you walk in the main gate, and here's the three main things we're marketing, and they're all right next to each other. You're trying to spread them out throughout the park. So that's part of what goes into it.
We talked about Terrifier, like Damien. No, this one's actually obviously interesting because there's
Jonathan Nolan.
the game,
Yeah.
and then there's Jonathan Nolan with the series. So
Yeah.
I know that they're very busy. They were making season 2.
Well, Jonathan was here.
He was here, though?
Oh yeah, I had Jonathan down here last week. I think it was last week, and the production designer from the series, and a whole bunch of people from the series, and people from Bethesda. It was probably like 15 people.
Oh wow!
But it was fun to walk Jonathan through, because he was just like, I feel like I'm back on set, and that's a really common thing we hear from filmmakers when they enter our haunted houses for the first time. It like mentally sends them back to being on set. But he was surprised. He was like, oh wow, you guys went there, and we're like, yeah, we have to. It's Fallout. That's the that's the franchise, but also the fan base. So it's a very passionate, dedicated fan base. So even down to the Pit Boys, he was asking us, so are you? And I'm like, oh no, we got it covered. We got it. Pit Boy, everything. Pit Boys are like the communication devices for anybody who doesn't know it, but they're very specific. The design is very specific. So yeah, it was fun to walk him through here. Last year, I invited a bunch of people from the series, executive producers and folks from Bethesda, and I took them to Horror Nights, and I took them to, at the time, A Quiet Place, and I took them through during the day with the lights on, and just to acclimate them to, okay, when we're working together, this is what we're doing, because it is different. It's different from making a movie or a television show, and it's really helpful to filmmakers if they can see it in a non-theatrical setting, like just turn on all the house lights and do a behind-the-scenes tour. It really helps them get their head around it, so that when we come around to pitching the creative, they understand why we do the things we do. Yeah.
I'm going to ask a question, and Lindsay can tell me if he can answer this or not.
Okay.
Orlando just announced that they're having necklaces for scaredy cats.
Yes, I heard about that.
Any thoughts on that? And are we getting that?
I don't believe we're doing it here. Yeah, it was talked about, but I don't believe we're doing it here. However, we'll definitely keep an eye on that, and other things. We're constantly in communication with our brothers and sisters of horror in Orlando. I'm in all year. I'm in meetings with them every week, collaborating. And even though the content might be slightly different coast to coast, it was fun. Mike Aiello just came out, who's my counterpart in Orlando, and we just did Midsummer Scream together and spent about a week together working on 2026. And we were talking a lot about that, like how we both like the fact that there's differences coast to coast. And I think we even asked, during our panel Midsummer Scream, how many guys plan on going to both? And it was a surprising number of people who raised their hands. And I think that's becoming like more and more a thing now. I think people are taking like horror Halloween vacations, using up whatever their time off is for the year. They use them during the time of Halloween so that they can not only go to Orlando and Hollywood, but that, they can go to all the home haunts, and they can do all, particularly in LA where there's so much to see. They really, and they come from Europe and do that. And so I think that's something our fans appreciate about the differences. But we'll keep an eye on anything that either park does. And the Crows are a great example. You saw those earlier. That's us. We created all of that. Earlier in the year, they started talking to me about, hey, we'd like to try to do a character like that. So we share all of our designs and all of our knowledge that we've learned about it. And theirs doesn't look like ours. It's different. And that's cool, But just because it's not being done in this park doesn't mean we might decide to do it if it makes sense for this park. totally different audiences on both coasts too. It's a different crowd.
With the UK property coming online,
Yeah,
are there any tentative plans to bring Horror Nights to that?
that I have to defer to Universal Creative because they're the people that are creating that and not me.
Got it.
But I can say Horror Nights has grown from, just being an event in Hollywood and Orlando to Singapore to Beijing has started doing their own version of it in China. And now, what you're seeing with, I think definitely with Horror Unleashed in Vegas and now announced for Chicago, and I'd even say Epic with the Dark Universe land. I would like to believe Horror Nights played a hand in all of that by making, we just here in Hollywood just did 6 years of Universal Monsters houses. Orlando's done a bunch, but I think you're seeing horror grow beyond just the events that we both create, to be in some cases year round, and it just speaks to the popularity and how and the fans' desire to experience that stuff. It's really cool. So now it is all over the world, and it's pretty cool.
If I could do the thing of throwing in a question about another house, I'm a big WWE fan, and I was here in 2000 when yeah. And
I saw that. Yeah, I saw it. I wasn't working on Horror Nights, but I did see it.
But yeah, I never thought we necessarily would ever see it back here
Me
again.
neither.
Yeah. Was that pretty, just kind of crazy to kind of see it 25 years later return?
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to something I said earlier, where like when we started out, my my vision of what Horror Nights was this, and over time, particularly after, maybe 10 years in where you're like, well, we've done every major franchise in horror, pretty much. We started looking for ways to expand our horizon in what we define horror as. And that's, that led initially to the music houses that we did back in the day and continue with things like The Weekend. Was that last year? Good God. Was that last year? Wow. 20 years ago. It seems like now that seems like a long time ago. Video games, things like Ghostbusters, trying things that might not be overtly horror. Even Fallout. Fallout falls into that category. I call those brand expanders. To me, it's okay. This genre of horror is continually evolving and changing. Let's bring things into our world that might not be, explicitly horror, but have horror aspects to them. Weekend was that. And see if we can make it belong in the world of Halloween Horror Nights. And that's something I think the WWE, for me personally, really falls into. Mike Aiello, he's a huge WWE fan, like lifelong. He sent me a video the minute that the Wyatt Six debuted on Raw. And he sent me that video, that first appearance. And he was like, what do you think? What do you think? And, back in the beginning, I probably wouldn't have thought of that as being horror, but I try to keep a real open mind these days. And I was like, okay, I know nothing about this. My dad took me to the Olympic Auditorium in downtown LA in the early 1970s to watch Freddie Blassie fight John Tollins, but I moved on to other interests when I was a kid. Whereas Mike and Ramon and a lot of the guys who work in Orlando are like diehard WWE folks. So I said, actually, this presents a really interesting creative dynamic. You guys are the experts. I'm going to take the position of I'm a fan of Halloween Horror Nights who knows nothing about this, and I'm going to come at it from that perspective. And then I'm going to become an expert. And then I had to do all of that research. So literally every match, every promo, everything from Bray Wyatt's entire journey, all the way through what his brother has taken on with the Wyatt Six. But coming through that research, what I really gained an appreciation for is what a talent Bray Wyatt was. What he did and how he thought. It is like a filmmaker. He came at it like a horror movie filmmaker. And I know he wanted to be part of Horror Nights because he was talking to Mike before he passed. Yep. And so when this came back around and we were able to get together with Rob Fee at WWE, I really wanted to create something that was a tribute to Bray. And so it has a weird emotional part to it. But I also wanted to create it like okay, this is the horror movie he never got to make, or this is the haunted house, etc., that he never got to experience, and come at it from that perspective. So they are a little different, coast to coast, but they have a lot in common too. There's a lot of scenes that are the same, executed differently, maybe, but the same basic ideas. But I think we just wanted to take you into the world of those characters that are teased at in promos and things of that nature. But now you're going to actually go into them in a living way, which is really exciting. But that one, by the time I was done with it, I was like, wow, I have a totally different appreciation for all of it. There's so many. If you go down the rabbit hole of details and what means what in WWE, it's insane.
Yes, it is.
I mean, every stitch on his fiend mask means something, and it's incredible. So we just wanted to honor that legacy, and I think it's going to be. I'm really curious to see how it plays for fans and non-fans alike. So yeah,
We have time for one last question.
okay.
So back to the video game aspect, I was curious, when you guys are choosing to bring the video game franchise, what makes you guys decide to bring like a series or film adaptation versus using like the video game itself?
It just depends on the opportunity and how it's presented to us. Yeah, this was definitely the TV series, and we'd never worked with Amazon before. It's our first time working with them, but they were already the first series had already just was about to come out when we got in touch with them, and it was always understood that it was going to be the series as opposed to the game, although Bethesda is involved as well. And then, like say with Last of Us, that was very much going to be the opposite. It was going to be the video game and not the series. So it just depends on the opportunity.